Hi everyone, it's Michelle. Welcome back. So today I thought I would share with you some of the books I read recently. I know you guys, many of you enjoy hearing about them, and I had a pile of them sitting on my desk over there and thought I would share them with you so that I can pass them along to others who might enjoy reading them. For those of you who don't know, I always talk about this. I don't hang on to my books once I've read them. There is a very slight chance that I would ever reread a book, so I pass them off to people who I think would enjoy reading them as much as I did. I don't hang on to them. It's just something extra to dust, and I don't need that in my life. So let's jump in and get started, shall we? I did want to revisit one that I am reading throughout the year. I don't think I talked about it in my last video, but I have talked about it before. But in case you missed it, I am reading Year of Wonder, this book, Year of Wonder, which is classical music to enjoy day by day. And I highly recommend this if you are if you like classical music, if you want to sort of educate yourself a little bit more on classical music and that kind of thing. This is a book that once a day, there's a page for every day. And on that page, it talks about a specific piece of music. So, like January 29th, Trio from Act 3 by Richard Strauss. Tells you the years Richard Strauss was alive. It gives you a little spiel on the piece, on the composer, and a little history on the music and that kind of thing. And then you can just go to the internet, or there are playlists associated with this for those of you who use Apple Music. And so you can listen to the piece and read about it, and every day it's a new piece. And I have truly enjoyed this. So if you're into that kind of thing, you would love this book. And yes, it does go day by day, but there's no reason you couldn't buy it today and start with today and, finish the year and then start next year with the beginning of it. It's, or just do one a day. Who cares if it's the right date? I have really enjoyed this very much, so I highly recommend that. Or if you have someone in your life who loves classical music, this might be a beautiful gift for them. Okay, let's talk about the books I read. First, I'm going to talk about one I listened to. I listened to An American Marriage by Tayari Jones. Let me tell you what the book's about before I tell you what I think of it. So I'm going to read you the little blurb and then give you my opinion. So newlyweds Celestial and Roy are the embodiment of both the American dream and the New South. He's a young executive and she's an artist on the brink of an exciting career. As they settle into the routine of their life together, they are ripped apart by circumstances neither could have imagined. In this deft exploration of love, loyalty, race, justice, and both black masculinity and black womanhood in the 21st century, Jones achieves that most elusive of all literary goals, the great American novel, named an Oprah's Book Club selection. So it's a young black couple recently married. He gets accused of a crime and ends up in jail. That's not giving away. I mean, it has been widely talked about. Ends up in jail, and it's sort of what happens to them as a couple and their marriage, as he is, as they are apart for this reason, and what happens to them. It was a great character book, I thought, because you really got to see Jones did a great job of really focusing on the characters. I mean, there's not a lot of, this is not a thriller. I mean, the man is accused of something and he ends up in jail, and it's sort of what happens to them as a couple because of the strength of their relationship, or the lack of strength of their relationship, or the lack of strength of their character, and it's hard to judge people who are put in these circumstances, because nobody knows really how they would react in those circumstances. It really is a great book about, it's a very hot topic right now. It's very real. It felt very real to me reading it. The characters felt very real to me, and it was like you could put yourself, not that I'm a black person, but you could put yourself in the situation where, what if this happened to me in my life? It would be easier for me as a white person, obviously, but it was a great character book. Highly recommend it if you like that kind of thing. Okay, the other, all the rest of the books I have here in person. So I reread Dinner with Edward. This is, I almost never reread a book, my book club for this month did Dinner with Edward, and I read this, at least a year ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, and loved it. But my book club decided to talk about it, so you know, I picked it up again, and it's Dinner with Edward by Isabel Vincent. It's now available in paperback. A story of unexpected friendship. The cover is super cute. I'll read you a little blurb. When Isabel, a hardworking journalist going through a divorce, meets Edward, a 93-year-old widower who has just lost his wife, she has no idea that the man in the kitchen baking the sublime roast chicken and light as air apricot souffle will end up changing her life. As these two unlikely dinner companions meet weekly for the glorious meals that Edward prepares, he shares so much more than his recipes for apple galette or the perfect martini or even his tips for deboning poultry. Dinner with Edward is a cross-generational story about love and nourishment, and about how dinner with a friend can, in the words of MFK Fisher, sustain us against the hungers of the world. So, if I remember correctly, he is the father of one of her friends who doesn't live in the area. She lives in the area. You know, his wife dies, he's kind of alone, and so her friend asks her, could you go check on my dad once in a while and, you know, look in on him? And so she starts doing this, and he cooks these fabulous meals when she's coming to visit him. And, you know, they talk about life and change and moving on and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And it's the relationship between the two of them is amazing. But the greatest thing about this is in every chapter when she goes to visit them, you know, the discussion of the food, you're going to be hungry throughout this entire book. You know, they talk about the food that he made, the smells, and, you know, there's like little recipes in here and that kind of thing, which was amazing. You know, and he talks about the meal and like maybe who he made it for before, and, you know, it is about their relationship, but food is a huge part of this. This was an amazing story. I highly, highly recommend it. Just do yourself a favor and read it. Okay, next. These are in no particular order, by the way. I also read The Lost Girls of Paris. This is a relatively, I don't know how new this is because I have it in paperback, by Pam Jenoff, who also wrote The Orphan's Tale, for those of you who have read, may have read that. So this is, I'll just read the blurb, it's better. One morning while passing through Grand Central Terminal, on her way to work, Grace finds an abandoned suitcase tucked beneath a bench. Unable to resist her own curiosity, she opens the suitcase where she discovers a dozen photographs, each of a different woman. In a moment of impulse, she takes the photographs and leaves the station. She soon learns that the suitcase belonged to a woman named Eleanor, leader of a network of female secret agents who were deployed out of London during the war. This is set in the 40s, so they're talking about World War II. 12 of the women were sent to occupied Europe as couriers and radio operators to aid in the resistance. They never returned home. Their fates are a mystery. Setting out to learn the truth behind the women in the photographs, Grace finds herself drawn to a young mother-turned-agent named Marie, whose daring mission overseas reveals a remarkable story of friendship, valor, and betrayal. Vividly rendered and inspired by true events, Pam Jenoff shines a light on the incredible heroics of brave women of the war and weaves a mesmerizing tale of courage, sisterhood, and the great strength of women to survive in the hardest of circumstances. So this is historical fiction. You know, this is a group of women decide to join the resistance, or convinced to join the resistance during World War II. They are really there to be communicators because the men who try to do this keep getting arrested because it's obvious, and back in that day it would be very rare for a woman to be a spy, so the women can get away with it for longer. And they're asked to do other things as well because, you know, once they get into the occupied territory, you know, some of the men aren't there to handle the things that need to happen so that, you know, the Allies can win the war. So this was a great book. I highly, highly recommend it. It is historical fiction, but, you know, the fact that it is based on some true events and some women who really did go in and do this kind of thing, I loved it. It was a long read, 400 pages, but it grabs you right away. You want to know more. It's kind of told in two time periods because, you know, in the early 40s are when the women are there. the story is of the women, and then it's right after the war has ended, so later in the 40s when Eleanor finds, or when Grace finds the photographs and starts trying to figure out who they are and tell their story kind of thing. So loved this, highly recommend it. If you like reading about World War II era, read it. And the last one I'm going to talk about today is The Immortalists by Chloe Benjamin. I liked this book too a lot. So I'm going to read you the blurb, and then we'll talk about it. If you knew the date of your death, how would you live your life? In 1969, New York City's Lower East Side, the word has spread of the arrival of a mystical woman who claims to be able to tell anyone the day they will die. The Golden Child, or the Gold Children, sorry. So there's 4 children on the cusp of self-awareness. They sneak out to meet her and hear their fortunes. The prophecies inform the next 5 decades of their lives. So Simon, the young boy, escapes to the West Coast searching for love in the 80s San Francisco. Dreamy Clara becomes a Las Vegas magician, obsessed with blurring reality and fantasy. The oldest son, Daniel, struggles to maintain security as an army doctor post 9/11, and bookish Varia throws herself into longevity research, where she tests the boundaries between science and immortality. It's both a dazzling family love story and a sweeping novel of remarkable ambition and depth. The Immortalist probes the line between destiny and choice, reality and illusion, this world and the next. It is a deeply moving testament of the power of story, the nature of beliefs, and the unrelenting pull of family bonds. So 4 kids sneak out to a fortune teller, and she tells each of them alone, not all together, the day they're going to die. And then the book goes on to tell the story of their lives, with each one knowing the date they're going to die, and how it makes them live their life maybe differently because they know that. So if you knew you were going to die at 30, would you have lived your 20s differently than you did not knowing, thinking that you're going to live to your 60, or knowing that you're going to live to your 80? Would you do things differently in your 40s or 50s? And it's all about that kind of thing, plus the bonds of these children and how their lives separate and come back together and that kind of thing. So it was a very unique book to read. It's a very interesting thought, to know. And then the question is, do you believe her? Do you believe the old lady? Do you think she really knows what she's talking about? And that kind of thing. So I did love this book as well. So I thought this was great. I thought the end was a little, no, I liked it. I mean, some things, it's tough. You don't always agree with the way the author ends the book, but highly recommend, highly recommend, highly recommend all of them. And this is just fun if you are a classical music lover, or want to learn more about classical music. So those are the books I read recently. I am just finishing up a couple more. So I'm going to try to do one of these at least once a month, depending on how many books I get through. I try to have like 3 or 4 books for you guys before I make a video, so that I at least have something to talk about. So those are the books I read. Please share in the comments with us if you read these books, what you thought, or if you have some fabulous books you've read recently that you think all of us should read. Please mention them in the comments below. Please, no spoilers in the comments. I try to, if someone wants to read a book, we don't want to know about the ending or some surprise character or something like that just because we read a comment. So that is it for today. Hopefully you guys have a fantastic day, and I will talk to you again soon.